All right, Julia, thanks so much for being on the Friends with Wheels podcast. If we could start off by asking by let me start off by asking how you got involved and how you started, and yeah, we can pretty much just start with that and go from there.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for having me. How I got involved in the work that I'm doing, I would say, is probably, I mean, I went to school for it, but I think more than that, it was just sort of a natural progression in my life, I think. So I work as a therapist and do a lot of more, I would say, almost like an intuitive therapist. So I kind of integrate intuition and my therapy training into my work with people. And how I got into that was probably I grew up um, just very like sensitive and aware of the people around me and what was going on, sometimes noticing emotional things that they wouldn't necessarily speak to from a young age. And so, kind of over the years of that being just in me and then learning how to use that skill more effectively and take care of myself within that, kind of just naturally evolved me into the work that I do now. I would say that's the shortest version of that story.
Because I was gonna ask, like, how did that sort of how does do you like develop intuition naturally, or how does that? Because people have intuition and they develop naturally, but I don't know for you what it was like.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like we all have different levels of sensitivity, which is sort of like how much information we're aware to kind of within our bodies, around us, for lots of different reasons as well. There's sort of, it can get layered and complicated, and there's always the mysterious piece because, of course, the way that we grow up, our mom's pregnancy, birth, like our early years, all of that affects how we are as well. Sometimes there can be certain experiences where it's like we actually train that ability from a young age to over attune to our environments for safety. And that's where it can get tangled up with like trauma in those ways. The way that I see it, certainly like we all come in very sensitive and perceptive and intuitive because if you think about as a baby, we don't have language to communicate yet. And we only have like our sensing, perceiving world, and we're very connected with our caregivers. And so, similar to lots of other animals that we see, like they have this other way of being with their environment and with the other beings around them that is different than a lot of us as humans. As we get older, we become very logical and linear and cognitive about the way that we approach our lives. So I do think like everyone is intuitive. There's no question. And then, especially as humans, we can learn to like simultaneously like develop certain skills of like enhancing that ability or also like unlearning things that we get taught as we're growing up about needing to have like linear logical approach that can help us our intuition and our natural knowings come alive more inside of us. So
hmm And
yeah.
so how do you sort of take that, the intuition piece, into like your therapy practice? Because because it's interesting how those two kind of can combine. So like how do you sort of take that and apply that to your work?
Hmm. So, an example I always give because it's like sometimes I've started saying it's like I'm not a psychic and I guess I'm a therapist, but I am or I'm not. I'm like somewhere in the middle. So it's different than like, in that I'm not telling people anything about their lives or there's not that, but it's more so an example I often give is like sometimes I'll be in a session with someone and I will maybe, let's say like all of a sudden my chest feels really tight for some reason. I might ask a question about that or ask a question based on that, that then it's like, how's your chest feeling right now? And they might say, my chest feels great. So then I'm like, okay, well, then that's not relevant to them. That might be me. It might be something else. I don't always know. That's kind of the mystery piece. Um, so it just sort of, it guides the conversation in that way where it's like sometimes, or I'll like hear a word come into my head and then a lot of times that will connect with what they were thinking, or sometimes that happens. So it just sort of guides it in that way. But it's still like they're in charge. They know themselves the best. So it's a very much like a nuanced dance between us in terms of what that looks like in session, but that would be the best example I could give.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the modalities that you use in your current work?
So I would call intuition, I guess you could call it a modality in the way that I do it as well, because and I still am, like I always am, is like practicing it and testing it and training it and seeing it. That's part of the question asking is like, I'm curious if I'm right or wrong. And then that helps guide where we're going to hopefully be of like the best service that I can to the person in front of me. So I would call intuition a modality. And then my training and my life has kind of gone beyond the therapy world. So when I was really young, I was passionate very much about like, I was a little bit in the fitness world, did a yoga teacher training. So there's a little bit of that that gets brought in different ways, sort of depending on the person who's in front of me. A little bit of like energetics and that sort of part of the intuition training. And then therapy wise, I would say like primarily coming from like an existential or like a depth oriented and emotion focused. Those are probably like the if I was to like pick primary modalities, those would be the ones. A little bit of IFS in there too. It's an eclectic mix.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of spirituality, kind of all that stuff, or
Yeah, I mean, depending on the person, like I find for me, like I'm pretty unattached to exactly what it looks like. The intuition piece is like in me. I don't know how to not be that way. And that's, like, because that's sort of what is guiding. And I think all of us have that. It's like they call it for a lot of medical professionals, like clinical intuition, I think they call it, or something along those lines. It's
yeah.
like we change the words, but it means the same thing. So that's a piece that's very much in there. The spiritual piece, I bring it in. It kind of depends on the person. It's like if they're not interested in that or it doesn't seem helpful or it doesn't land, then that's when I'll pull from the more emotion focused pieces. And it's kind of, again, the intuition is the filter because it's like I'll use my intuition for like where are they at, what is more supportive in this moment. And then sometimes I'll offer what might be like a more mystical perspective. And I don't know if I've ever had it like not land. I just had to think about it, but it's like the intuition's the filter. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And then I can lean on the therapeutic pieces if that doesn't resonate. I find a lot of the people that tend to come to me are quite sensitive and perceptive and overwhelmed by that. So sometimes these other practices or resources or whatever it looks like, imagination based stuff can be really helpful.
Mm-hmm. And I know that we talked about intuition, so but I wanted to get your take on this. Like what's your take on like who who has intuition and who is not? Is there some sort of like a gender thing to it? Are like women have more intuition than men, or does it like differ from person to person?
That's a really interesting question. I would say, I mean, we all have it. There's no
Mm-hmm.
question because I think, it's like, again, like the going back to this is where like I'll also reference natures and animals a lot as well. And I live like out in the country, so there's animals and nature all around me. And, like if you look at like the way that they operate, I'm trying to think of a good example right now of like, my dog will go and move towards the gate like several minutes before someone. Oh, like I guess a good one is if I'm leaving, because that's a bit of a thing that we're working on right now. We've just moved.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm going to leave the house, like an hour and a half before I'm going to leave, I haven't like gotten any of the items, done any of the things, but I'm thinking about, oh gosh, I need to leave. And like it's a little bit of a event these days. Like it's a little bit takes some steps. And as soon as I start thinking about that, I notice that her behavior changes because she knows, my assumption is she knows what's happening. Of course, like I can't prove it. Um, so we all have it. That's like our animal, like we're animals. We're as much as we kind of live in sometimes in cities and we don't feel very much like animals, we do have that aspect of us.
Mm-hmm.
I would say
I
that
live in the city, so yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so you said you live in the countryside, so but like where?
I'm in British Columbia, Canada.
Yeah,
Uh,
so you're like above me, so yeah.
yeah, whereabouts are you?
I'm in Seattle, as you can
Okay.
see from my background. So,
Oh yeah, I thought that looked like Seattle. Yeah.
hmm yeah, the
Okay.
Space Needle. So,
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
so it's interesting that you bring up your dog in that example, because like do dogs or do animals in general, do they like perceive stuff or like intuition?
You mean like do they have intuition?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no expert in this arena by any stretch of the imagination. I would say yes. I would say that like also for survival, if you think about like when you watch animals in the wild, not many of us do that often, I guess, but if you look at sort of how they communicate with each other, make certain decisions. So she is a certain type of very specific type of dog that is bred for protecting livestock, like sheep and goats and things like that. So their job, these dogs tend to prefer to live outside, and they bond very deeply to the animals that they are protecting. Um, and so their instincts are attuned in a particular way. And so with her, for example, like she makes very independent decisions. So if I think about like when we've had animals come onto the property, there was a baby deer that came onto the property a while back, and her buddy, they like was chasing the deer off of the property, and it was a
Mm-hmm.
baby deer, got stuck in the fence, and but they chose not to kill it
Mm-hmm.
because they made that decision. The deer got away, everything was fine, but it's like they're protecting the property versus like a raccoon has been killed because they make that decision. I don't always know the rhyme or reason about why they make all the decisions that they do. And so, yeah, I think in that way, like when I watch her communicate with other dogs, like when she chooses to step back versus when she chooses to assert herself, I definitely, like I said, no expert, but I'm of the belief that there's a lot more going on than meets our eyes in that way.
Mm-hmm. And now, like, if we shift back to the people,
Yeah,
so like, I know, weird segue,
that's
but
okay. Good one.
but if we shift back to the people, how do you sort of help folks, with their intuition, that have those perceived thoughts or perceptions, feelings, thoughts, whatever?
Hmm. So again, it very much depends on the person. I find, it's like I'm not necessarily helping them develop their intuition in the way that I see my role at this moment. But it's more like my biggest priority in how I work with people is like as a therapist, especially like when people are coming and they're going through something challenging or they're in a difficult period of their life or whatever that might look like. It's like I want to work in a way that is they feel and they know that I'm there with them, I am there for them, and I'm always here. And my job is that I eventually render myself unnecessary. So it's like I want to work in a way where we are sort of reconnecting all of their internal communication systems, one of which might be what we call intuition. It might be lots of other things in terms of in their body, in their emotions, in their thoughts, just feeling solid within their own system so that it's like I'm not needed. I might be there. They might be like, this is helpful, this is great, or they might be like, I want to take a break, whatever that looks like. But really, again, like similar to what I was saying earlier, of like wanting to support their internal source within themselves. And even from that, then they know this is the kind of support I need in this season or what I'm going through now versus like this other support might be what I need at this other time, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. My next question is, who was your mentor that made you want to do this kind of work? And feel free to name drop.
Okay. I mean, I've had many wonderful mentors. I had a therapist when I was very young, like a teenager, who very much like guided me in that journey towards becoming a therapist, I would say. I've had a few lovely mentors on the intuition side of things as well, who've taught me a lot. Um, yeah, I think there's been many. And then for me too, like I will say also my mom is very intuitive. And we're very, very different in the way that our intuitions are. So it has taught me a lot as I've become an adult, and we have like obviously a different kind of relationship as adults now. And I get to see her as the woman that she is and how she operates, and with myself, and we get to see our similarities and differences. And she's taught me a lot. She's extremely knowledgeable about the physical body and nutrition and all of that. So she's taught me a lot on that front. My dog, all the animals and beings, like definitely have taught me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You said that you and your mother, have different ways of processing or handling information. How so? Intuition, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, my mom, I'm a very, in my like personality, I guess you might say, like I'm a very creative, kind of emotional, go with the flow kind of a person, as you might garner from this conversation. Whereas my mom is very scientifically oriented, very intellectual. And so, and then also like she has done a lot of work in like neuroscience and the physical body and those kinds of things. So even the way like she works with her intuition is more like kinesiological and scientific in those ways, whereas I'm very much like a feeler. So we have sometimes it'll be fun because we'll be like, what did you get for this? Or what did you get for that? And testing each other to see because she has her way and I have my way. And we kind of find our own ways to, um, yeah, like perceive the world around us, as you might
Hmm.
say.
Yeah, yeah, mothers are the best. They are the best.
They are the best. They are the best.
My next question is, what have you learned in doing this kind of work with intuition?
So much. I feel like I've learned how much I don't know. I think that it's a cliche for sure, but I find for me, especially in the my like therapeutic work and in like our the therapy like industry, if you will, um, there can be very much a focus on, especially when you think about some of our scientific processes around therapeutic work, it's very much like we're always trying to understand, we're always trying to deduce and simplify different experiences that humans have or different treatment protocols that we come up with into these very again, like logical, linear understanding processes. And it's like that has a time and a place. I don't want to make it wrong by any stretch. For me, I think I'm always learning around like how much there is that perhaps as humans we aren't even like supposed to know because we are in this experience, we're having this experience, and that's I guess where it can get a bit spiritual. Um, but again, like we're experiencing life and the vastness of the human experience is kind of never ending. There's not, I don't personally know any person that has like figured it out that's still alive.
Mhm.
And so I think that's probably what I'm always learning is just the depths and the edges of that. Just one thing to know it intellectually is another thing sort of like in my own body and the way that I perceive my own experiences translates into my work it's filtered, but in that way.
Hmm. And is there anything that you'd like to learn in terms of something new, either in your private practice or anything else?
Lots. Um, I mean, I don't know if I will say like lately a lot, I would like to learn a lot more in the women's health realm. Like I work primarily with women. And I think there's a lot of really specific experiences that just through like my own self-study up until now around like our cycles as women, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, all of these like initiations that we go through that I sort of like read in my spare time, but there is a part of me that would love to understand those in a deeper way, just to be able to support the people that come to me better and more like completely in their experience, especially also because I like one of my specializations is around disordered eating and eating disorders, and there's so much interlinking in that realm as well. So I would say like if I was to answer that from a question of like, what's the next course I want to take?
Hmm.
It's probably either in that arena or like, definitely integrating more work with animals in my future as well. But I don't know what that looks like yet. So,
Hmm. Well, I'm sure you've got a lot to think about. Yeah. But my next question is, for those who want to do what you're doing or work on intuition, stuff like that, what tips and advice would you give to those people who want to do what you're doing, I guess?
hmm. I mean, do what you feel passionate about for sure. With the intuition piece, again, like I don't necessarily feel fully qualified in terms of like teaching intuition yet. However, what I will say is like the more that I would say for a lot of us humans, it's like it sounds again like I find with our emotional, physical, so many layers of our experience, the most simple things that we don't want to do a lot of times can be more helpful than we think they're going to be. Um,
Hmm.
and so everyone's so different, right? Like some people process better when they're moving, some people process when they're sitting still, some people process better through art or drawing or writing, speaking, whatever it might be. But I would say like I want to say slow down, but I don't mean that in like move slower or like do something different. But it's like if we can sort of like whatever that means for you, that's what I feel like I want to say. I think just because as humans, like there's always something in us that's moving quickly through our lives because we have a lot of stimulation from the outside world. There's a lot going on. There's all these moving pieces. Um, and I think, yeah, for me, it's always the animals. Like if I look at how they live their lives, they're even if they're moving really fast, there's a level of presence in there. That's maybe not the most practical thing to offer, but that's what I would say.
Yeah, because I remember I watched this video and Sam Harris, I think he's an influential speaker, and he talked about how people are oftentimes, speeding up throughout the course of their life, planning their future, planning, their next career move, what they're gonna do with their life. Are they gonna get married? Are they gonna do whatever? But then they don't focus on the present moment. They don't slow down. So that's what I took away from it.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
that's the sometimes the cliches are cliche for a reason.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people should focus on being present in the present moment, but yeah, that's just me.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah, I'm sure it is a challenge. So for those who want to learn more about your work, what can they do?
Um, so I would say Instagram is a nice way to connect with like because like if you want to connect with and like get a feeling for my work and me, my life. Because that's like I for me, I always like I'm always want to connect with the person if I'm going to connect with someone in their work in this type of work. So, and then my website, villagewellnesstherapy.ca. So I have a private practice that is all online at this point. So it can be far reaching in that way. And yeah, Instagram, Village Wellness Therapy, or Julia C. Webster.
Yeah, I'll make sure to add that in the show notes once I upload it and publish it.
Awesome.
All right. Okay, dokie. Okay.